Have you ever looked at someone who's achieved something truly incredible and just thought, how? Well, the secret usually isn't some huge, dramatic, overnight success. Nope, it's actually something way smaller, way more consistent. Let's get into it.
You know the feeling, right? We've all been there. You set this massive, exciting goal. You're going to write a novel, start a business, get into the best shape of your life, and then you just stop. The goal is so huge, it's completely paralyzing, and you get stuck before you've even taken the first step.
And this is the trap we all fall into. We've been told that to get those big, amazing results, you need to take some heroic, world-changing action. But what if that whole way of thinking is exactly what's holding us back?
To really see what I mean, let's look at a real-world story that just completely flips this idea on its head. This is about how one of the most, mediocre teams in sports history became one of the most dominant forces on the planet.
And I'm not exaggerating. For 100 years, they were basically a joke. Think about it. Since 1908, they'd only managed to win a single Olympic gold medal. And in the Tour de France, the biggest race in the world, a British cyclist hadn't won ever. It got so bad that one of the top bike manufacturers flat out refused to sell them bikes because they were worried it would make their brand look bad. Ouch. But then, in 2003, this guy, Dave Brailsford, takes over, and he comes in with a totally different strategy. He called it the aggregation of marginal gains. Now, that sounds super fancy, but all it really means is finding a tiny 1% improvement in absolutely everything you do. The whole idea was to break down every single thing that goes into riding a bike and then just improve each little piece by 1%. And when I say everything, I mean everything. They've redesigned the bike seats to be more comfortable. They rubbed alcohol on the tires for a little extra grip. Okay, makes sense. But then they went deeper. They hired a surgeon to teach the riders the proper way to wash their hands to avoid colds. They tested different pillows to find the absolute perfect one for each rider's sleep. They even painted the inside of the team truck white just so they could spot tiny bits of dust that might mess with the bike mechanics. You might be thinking, this sounds completely obsessive and kind of silly, right? Well, the results were anything but silly. They were historic. In just 10 years, all those tiny 1% gains added up to 178 world championships, 66 Olympic and Paralympic gold medals, and 5 Tour de France victories. It is, without a doubt, one of the most successful runs in the history of the sport. And it was all built on these tiny marginal gains. So, how is that even possible? Well, here's the math, and this is where it gets crazy. If you get just 1% better at something every day for a year, you don't end up 365% better. No, you end up 37 times better because the gains compound. On the flip side, if you get 1% worse each day, you end up at almost zero. It's a powerful force.
See, progress isn't a straight line. It's a curve. Those little daily habits you do, they're like compound interest for your personal growth. In the beginning, you barely notice a difference, but if you just stick with it, that growth suddenly becomes exponential. This is where good habits make time your best friend, and bad habits, well, they make it your worst enemy.
Okay, so if compounding is the engine that drives this thing, what's the steering wheel? How do we actually direct it? This leads us to another huge idea, focusing on systems instead of goals. It's all about shifting your focus from the what you want to achieve to the how you're going to get there. So let's make that distinction really clear. A goal is the result you want to win the championship. A system is the process that gets you there. It's what you do at practice every single day. Goals are awesome for setting a direction, but it's the systems that actually get you moving. Just think about it for a second. Winners and losers, they often have the exact same goal. Every single team in the league wants to win the championship. The goal isn't what makes the difference. It's the system, the commitment to tiny daily improvements that does. If you only focus on goals, you're basically putting off happiness until you hit that one moment. But if you focus on the system, you can actually enjoy the process itself. A perfect way to think about this is the Channel Tunnel. I mean, what an insane project, a 50-kilometer tunnel under the ocean. The goal, build a tunnel, is just overwhelming. But the system? Their system was to just focus on digging the next meter, and then the next. That's how our brains work best, by chunking these giant ambitions into little, manageable pieces. And here's the really cool part, the neuroscience behind it all. Every single time you finish one of those small chunks, your brain gives you a little hit of dopamine. That's the chemical that controls motivation and reward. So each tiny win literally, chemically, fuels your desire to keep going.
The progress itself becomes the reward. But, and this is a big but, there's a catch. And it's the very reason that most of us quit. There's almost always a period of time where it feels like nothing you're doing is making any difference at all. Welcome to the Valley of Disappointment.
Let me give you an analogy. Imagine you've got an ice cube and it's sitting in a room that's 28 degrees. You slowly start to raise the temperature. 29 degrees, nothing happens. 30 degrees, still just an ice cube. 31 degrees, you're putting in all this effort and it feels completely wasted.
But then, the moment you hit 32 degrees, a massive change is unlocked. The ice starts to melt. Now here's the key. All that work you did to get the room from 28 to 31 degrees was not wasted. It was being stored. All that energy was just waiting for that breakthrough point.
And this is exactly what's happening when we feel stuck. We expect our progress to be a nice, neat, straight line. But in reality, our efforts are building up potential, usually where we can't see it. It's called the plateau of latent potential. And that frustrating dip, that valley of disappointment, that's where we quit, usually right before things are about to take off. There's this quote from Jacob Riis that just captures this perfectly. A stonecutter hammers at a rock 100 times, and not a single crack appears. Then, on the 101st hit, it splits in two. He knows it wasn't that last hit that did it. It was all the hits that came before it. Mastery just requires patience. Okay, so we get the theory. How do we actually put this into practice? How do we push through that plateau? Let's make this super actionable with a simple 5-step playbook to engineer your own small wins. Here we go. Number 1, define your goal, but be specific. What exactly do you want to accomplish in the next 90 days? 2, chunk it down. Break that goal into smaller milestones, and then break those down into tiny actions you can do this week. 3, create a rhythm. Put a weekly check-in on your calendar. Make it non-negotiable. 4, track it where you can see it, a whiteboard, a checklist, anything. Making progress visible is a huge motivator. And finally, number 5, celebrate relentlessly. Every time you complete a tiny action, acknowledge it. This isn't silly. This is how you hack your brain's reward system and build unstoppable momentum. So that's the big idea. Small, smart habits don't just add up. They compound into something incredible. You don't need to do something earth-shattering tomorrow. You just need to start. So I'll leave you with this one question. What's your 1% improvement today?